All right, guys, we'll get this underway. Last of our workshops that we're going to go through this week. So we've obviously covered nutrition, huge component of body composition change. Last night was all about movement because, well, we are a gym. You have to move at some point. And a really big underestimated aspect of you guys hitting your goals is mindset. And so that's why we wanted to cover this. We've gone over it in different ways over the last 10 years, sometimes in a group kind of setting like this. Sometimes it's more of a one-on-one setting. We've also had like online kind of coaching for this. And I think that doing it in a group setting like everything else we do is probably the most successful way of getting a message across, and we can kind of interact and talk about our different experiences with how this works for you personally. So Mindset 101, we're going to go over a few things. So, true or false? I want to know what your answer is to this question. What you believe about yourself impacts your success or failure. A few nods. Yep. It's a kind of obvious question, but it depends what sort of mindset a person's in. So we're going to talk about two different types of mindsets that people fall into. And according to Stanford psychologists, your beliefs play a pivotal role in what you want and whether you achieve it. So even if we give you the best nutrition plan and a kick-ass exercise program, if you're not in the mindset that you believe you can achieve the results that you tell us, all that's irrelevant. So you've got to have that belief, and that's hard when you're first starting out and you're a long way from the goal that you tell us that you want. Why is that not clicking? Right. Researchers found that your mindset plays a significant role in determining achievement and success. So exactly what is a mindset? It refers to whether you believe qualities like intelligence, skill and talent can be changed, basically. And a lot of people believe that that's not the case. They might tell us that they're really committed to changing themselves and that they're ready to improve their diet and get on an exercise program. But if your mindset is that, but my genetics or whatever has always prevented me from losing weight in the past, all my family's big boned. If you've got that kind of fixed mindset, you're not going to ever change your results until you adopt more of a growth mindset. So people with a fixed mindset believe that those qualities are fixed, unchangeable. People with a growth mindset know that those abilities can be developed and strengthened through hard work. And that's what we want to get more and more people into, is a growth mindset, but a consistent growth mindset. January is a really classic example. A lot of people will come here in January with a growth mindset that this year is going to be different, they're going to change, but they've got habits from the past that are a little bit more in the fixed kind of mindset pattern, and they're going to take hard work and commitment to undo some of those old patterns. Why it matters plays a critical role in how you cope with challenges. That's a big word that we use here. Some people's membership here is a challenge. It is a challenge every testing week to meet certain requirements and hit certain goals. Challenge week is all about challenges. You get into teams and we constantly battle it out twice a day over a week and overcome the challenge of a physical session, overcome the challenges of a really sore body, overcome the challenges of things that you think you might not be able to achieve. And that concept of challenge is a big part of what we do here, and it's a big part of having a growth mindset. Those with a growth mindset, they're more likely to persevere when there's setbacks and hurdles. People with fixed mindsets are more likely to just give up. Ever been there? Yeah, we haven't always been in a growth mindset. No one's always in one. No one's always been in one. No one's constantly in one. Because if you haven't failed at something, then you're not trying hard enough. Fixed mindsets tend to create a need for approval with phrases like, will I succeed or fail at this? Will I look dumb? Will I look silly? Am I going to embarrass myself? Phrases like that, that's the fixed mindset kind of telltale signs. Whereas growth mindset, it's a hunger for improvement, for learning, for change. A desire to work hard and discover new things, to tackle challenges and grow as a person. Failure is not really failure, it's just an experience to learn and grow from. So, does anyone want to comment on that? Or share some experience that, a failure you've had in the past that you've turned into a positive? Or a setback you might have had? I've got a couple of examples myself, but does anyone want to share? So one for me is when we first came up with the idea to build this place, Oxygen was about 4.5 years old. We're now 10. And we decided, we're going to get a facility. We're going to bite the bullet and we're going to do it. We can't really afford to do it, but we're going to figure out a way. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that, about setting up a goal later and letting your subconscious mind figure out how to do it. And that's a big part of what we did. But the failures, the setbacks that we had trying to get this place open, we found it. We found it before our 5th birthday, and we moved in here eventually just before our 6th birthday. And we were ready to sign the lease almost a year earlier, which would have bankrupted us if we had have signed it. But they told us we couldn't move in here because a gym is classified as indoor recreation, and that is a prohibited activity in this business park. Despite the fact that there is a dance studio, or was a dance studio right there, and a gym downstairs, indoor recreation was a prohibited activity. So no worries, we'll work around that. I'll get a solicitor onto this who can, reword stuff, and cost me a bit in doing so and still fail. And needed to get sections of council's planning guidelines worded differently, which isn't easy to do. And then it really, on top of that, it involved having to go another step higher and go to the Department of Planning to get the zoning of this business park changed. That's not a fast process. So that's why it took just over 11 months for us to finally move in here, and nearly broke me in the process, but we finally made it here. And that's using setbacks and failures to just push on and be determined that we'll find a way to get there somehow. And that's only one of many failures and setbacks we've had at Oxygen. A growth mindset. It isn't believing that anyone can be anything and you can all be superstars if you just put in the effort. Not everyone can be Albert Einstein or Kelly Slater if they just try. It's not about being in a growth mindset and having this la-di-da kind of attitude that I can be president of the United States one day. Well, no, that's not possible. But it also means living up to your potential. And the word potential really has no definition, because no one ever really knows what that potential could look like. So it's kind of a little bit ambiguous in that sense that it's you can be anything you want, but who knows what that is. So who knows how far a person can really go when they really set their mind to something. And I'm sure you know people in all areas of life that have taken on a business, taken on a physical challenge, taken on something in their life that everyone told them that they'd fail at. But when they're really, really committed to something and they set their mind to it, it's amazing what you can achieve. Right. Why was I not clicking over? Some famous failures. Anyone know who that is? Steve Jobs. They get confused a bit. Steve Jobs is... Oops, I think I went back one. Steve Jobs he's dead now, which is another story. Steve Jobs, founder of Apple, fired from his own company. Getting fired from Apple was the best thing that could have ever happened to me. Revolutionised the multiple different industries. Anyone got an iPhone? Yeah. It's not just a phone, is it? It's a computer. It's allowed people to carry the internet in their hand. Let's not forget what came before the iPhone was the iPods and then the iMacs, and like I said, revolutionised multiple industries. A couple of other examples, just while we're on Steve Jobs, shows you that he became, I think, at one point, second or third richest person in the world, but he died of pancreatic cancer. Money's not everything, is it? I tried to make that one a bit easier to figure out. You might be able to get it, Brian. Henry Ford? Yeah, who guessed that? Thanks, Brian. Yeah, Henry Ford. Very old picture, because that was a long time ago. Founder of Ford Motors. First two car companies failed. Imagine if he had given up. Revolutionised not just the car industry, but the transport industry. Another one. That gives a bit of a giveaway. Walt Disney, founder of Disney Inc., fired from his job at a newspaper early in his career because they said he lacked imagination. Disney Inc. now is widely regarded as, appealing to all demographics, from kids to adults, revolutionised the entertainment industry. It's not all about billionaires and business owners. Michael Jordan, widely regarded as the best basketballer of all time. You might debate that, Nath.
I didn't see him play.
One off.
I didn't see him play.
Yeah. One of. It's a pretty good debate though. Missed the cut on his high school basketball team. 4 years later made his NBA debut. And that's a really famous quote that a lot of people have seen, even if they're not into basketball. I'm not especially into basketball, but I've missed more than 9,000 shots in my career. I've lost almost 300 games. 26 times I've been trusted to take the game-winning shot and missed it. I've failed over and over and over, and that is why I succeed. This guy here is called Eddie Hall. He's a strongman. And I wanted to show you that photo. I know it's not heaped clear, but strongmen don't care about their physique. They just eat to fuel performance. So it's not bodybuilding. Strongmen often have quite massive frames, but quite big guts to go along with it because they don't need to be lean. They need to be strong. And you can see on that picture on the right, he's ripped with a six-pack. So he's lost about 38 kilos there. He's gone from about a 180 kilo guy. And powerlifting's typically a profession where once you get big, they reckon you stay big. But he's the only person in history to deadlift half a ton, 500 kilos. Sometimes on strongman competitions you see that they have different types of bars, and they might pick up a bar that actually has truck tyres on it. And so they're picking up a shit ton of weight, but they're not having to pick it up very far because the bar's placed up quite high. That 500 kilos is a regular straight bar on the ground, half a ton. Only person in history. Sorry? Yeah, they make extra long bars. and they just wobble. When they pick them up, it's a banana bend. But shortly after deadlifting 500 kilos, he passed out and decided to quit strongman for health reasons. That wasn't the only one, but there were other health reasons as well. So he lost 38 kilos, gained a six-pack despite people telling him that that was impossible. That's him at the bottom as a 21-year-old before he got into strongman. He was quite a good swimmer. But successful mindset, he knew what he was capable of, he knew what was required, he knew that in the long run if he just applied himself consistently, he'd get there. Pretty cool transformation though. Not many 150 kilo blokes I know with a six pack. So, how does that transfer into oxygen and what we define success as? Earlier this year, we released something that we've been working on for a while where we wanted to look at and identify what our best clients do to be successful. And we sort of narrowed it down to 5 key traits. And that first one is clarity. Clarity around your goals and where you want to go. So you have to know what your goals are and why they're important to you. Because as I touched on earlier, with January, a lot of people come in full of motivation. But if you can't tap into that underlying motivation and why it's important to you, that motivation will fade. No one's motivated all the time. So if you don't know where you're going, any road will get you there. And heaps of people here and in gyms everywhere come to the gym and see that as a win. What are you trying to achieve? Every Friday I go up the mountain to the top of Jamboree Mountain to a place called Triple Care Farm. Nate's been there as well many times. And it's kind of a rehab retreat for drug and alcohol affected youth from I think age 16 and 24. We spend about 3.5 hours up there every Friday, and we're working with some kids who have been in tough places, and like their mindset is shot. And I've always sort of said to them, because it's a 12-week program up there, and who I met last week, they might have quit by the time I see, by the time I go back up there tomorrow. I hope that's not the case, but it happens a lot. And so every Friday almost, I'm meeting someone new, and I always make the point of just starting the session quite slow and sitting down with them like this and talking and saying, this gym, they've got quite a decent gym up there, can be an awesome part of your overall rehab. And it can be a huge waste of time as well. So if you don't have some sort of idea about what you're trying to achieve by being here, this won't last. You're saying you're keen today and you're saying you're motivated, but what is it that you really want to achieve? Because you can achieve multiple different goals by coming to a gym, and you don't want to be stuck on a fat loss routine if your ultimate goal is to be is to bulk up and add some weight to your frame, and vice versa. So I've got to know a bit about the person. You've got to know what that is first. It's amazing how many times I sit down with people here at Oxygen still and ask them what their goals are. They can't really tell me. And don't feel too bad about that. Just know that it's common, but also know that going to the gym and not getting results is also common. And there's a link between the two. So think about what it is you really want, visualize what it is you really want, and you need to keep envisaging that person that you want to be at the end of the road, not who you are now. Visualize that person you want to be. We've said this before, but there's a difference between exercise, which is just random activity, and training. That's targeted program that we concentrate on here. You don't need 1,000,001 different exercises. You probably need to specialise in about 5 to 10 and get really good at them. And that involves programming. Only one gets your results. Skill 2, or client success principle 2, is you've got to be coachable. Now, whether you're a complete beginner, I've had some beginners start here this week. Not a complete beginner, Jess. Or a really experienced gym junkie, you need to listen to the coaches here. Just be open to doing things differently. You need to be open to doing things differently than what you've tried before. Because if what you tried before worked, you probably wouldn't have needed to come here. Most successful people in almost every pursuit have a coach. You go and find the best business owners, they've got a coach in their corner. You go and find the best people in the CrossFit games, they've got coaches advising them what to do. The best strongman that I showed you before. Is anyone a Game of Thrones fan? No, know it? You know the big guy, the mountain? Yeah, he's one of the biggest humans ever. His name's Hafthor Bjornsson. He's 180 kilos lean, about 6'7", and just as a side note, he's actually the smallest of all his brothers. But he's been classed, as that Eddie Hall has. They've been awarded world's strongest man. They still have a coach. Someone who's clearly not as strong as them, they have a coach. So why does Joe Blow, who doesn't know jack shit about the gym, think that he doesn't need one? Got to be coachable. 3, you've got to be committed. That's a question that we'll ask people when we first start here. And if, on a scale of 1 to 10, how committed are you to achieving your goals right now? If you're not at least a 9, I won't sign them up. If they're not at least a 9, because if they're a 9, I'll push them to 10 anyway. But if you're a 7 or 8, I'm going to ask the question, what could I do to get you a bit over the line towards more of a 10? And there's an array of different answers, but on the commitment thing, if you're only keen to come along here and just dip your toe in the water for 2 or 3 sessions a week and hope that you're going to lose 20 kilos, that's not committed. We've always advised people that you need to be training more days in the week than you rest. So that's at least 4. It's hard for us to guarantee any kind of result if you're not getting here at least that many times, or if you're not exercising that many times. Motivation will come and go. We talked about that before. It will come and go, but when you're truly committed to changing your lifestyle, you'll be in it for the long term. So it doesn't rely on your motivation. Committed clients, once they embrace the idea of long-term commitment, also accept that there's many other areas of your health, nutrition, mobility, sleep, mindset, that you'll need to commit to as well to improve your results. So we've covered nutrition this week. You guys see all the action that's going on in the nutrition groups all the time. There's a certain level of accountability by just showing people what you're eating consistently. Mobility we talked about yesterday. Sleep's probably one that's very underrated. That'll affect your energy levels, stress hormones and stuff like that. Principle 4 is you've got to be confident. And that's hard when you're first getting started because you probably haven't had great results. You need to have confidence in your coach's expertise as well though, and our experience. I feel really old when I listen to the videos, and I've said a few times in these seminars that this is my 20th year in the fitness industry. So I started in year 2000. Nath was born in 99.
97.
Sorry, you're 3. But that's when I started. Like, I don't for 1 second think that I'm the best coach in the world, but I know some shit, and I've gained a lot of experience, good and bad, over that time. Joy too. Nathan as well now. He's, for a young bloke, he's 3 years into it.
3 years, yeah.
3 years into his career now. When we map out a plan to get you from where you are now to where you want to be, you've got to have the confidence that what we've come up with for you is going to get you there. We've got confidence in you, but you've got to believe in yourself. Last one is consistent. Nothing worth having comes easy. At times this will be really difficult. Sounded as though that 5k row that Nadia just did was difficult at times. And we know she rows well. It's never easy, is it? Never easy. Doesn't matter what distance you're doing. It's uncomfortable a lot of the time. It was, yeah. I did one this morning. But stopping and starting only delays you further. So many times I've seen people get started, not just here, but in other gyms I've worked at, and just people I know that have gone on this diet or started at this gym or started running, and they've got started with some sort of program, and everything will work for a while. Even if you come up with the shittest program alive, if it's churning through calories and you're careful, a bit more careful about what you eat, it's going to lead to a calorie deficit and it's going to get some result. But so many times I've seen people get started with something, anything, and just when they're almost about to make it a habit in their life, they start getting inconsistent. They start dropping off. The gym sessions that they were doing 4 or 5 times a week was only 1 this week. And then they get back to it the next week and it's 3 or 4 times, but then the next week they miss the whole thing completely. And then they just never get that consistency that they need to start really getting next level results. When you're consistent, things get easier over time. Who's started here with something that we've thrown at you and thought, Jesus Christ, that's heavy. But suddenly it's not as heavy as it used to be. What was that one, Joe?
The warm-up when I started.
The warm-up? Yeah. Yeah. I think I outlined yesterday or the Tuesday seminar that we've just had a client start back here in the last 3 weeks who was a client almost 10 years ago, disappeared for a while. They're a bit older and they've had some hip surgeries, and squatting has just been a real battle. And the way they were squatting 2.5 weeks ago was to be expected. It was really very tight and around the hips. They could barely break into a half or quarter squat. Saw a video of that person this morning, like you guys did in your circuit, heels elevated on the green plate, squatting all the way down to the ground 10 times. That kind of thing will change that person's life. So when you're consistent, things get easier over time. You start to notice little improvements, and celebrating those small wins, that gets that snowball effect going. Because whatever your long-term goal is, it's a long way away, and it's hard to stay motivated between now and 12 months. But if you can celebrate the small wins and seeing the green ink on the board and seeing your mobility improve and seeing your 14 seconds off the 5k row times, they're the small wins that you need to keep your motivation up. So, if you want to know more on that stuff, there's a great book called Psycho-Cybernetics. Sounds like some sort of Terminator movie. It's a pretty small book. It's also pretty small text. So it's bigger than you think. It takes a while, but it's really good stuff. I've read it plenty of times, and when I decided to put this seminar together, I just started reading it again and just drawn back into it. It was first published in 1960. Maxwell Maltz. There's a porn star name if ever I've heard one. He was a plastic surgeon. No? He was a plastic surgeon in the 60s. And by the way, it says that book is ranked number 11 in the top 100 mindset books of all time. It's a pretty cheap book to buy. I really recommend getting yourself a copy. He was a plastic surgeon, and he's now widely regarded as one of the founders of modern psychological advice, because he had all these patients that he was doing facial reconstructive plastic surgery on, and people came to him with deformities in their face, and they felt they had pretty poor self-esteem, and they felt very low in confidence and thought that if they had their face done up, got plastic surgery, that they would improve themselves. And some did, and some like of all the clients that had it, some did and were a new person. Some did, looked brilliant, looked $1 million, but still thought of themselves as that ugly self-worth was nothing type of person. So it got him into investigating, why that is. And like I said, his research over decades turned into the book of Psycho-Cybernetics, and it's shaped the way a lot of great modern day psychologists do their work. He observed the impact of strong self-image and how it relates to achieving your goals and success. Have you ever considered how much your self-image plays a role in your life? What thoughts come to mind when you think of yourself? Because it's hugely important. Hugely important. We can't help you if you think the worst of yourself. If you think you're never going to achieve that. If you think you're a failure. If you think you can just hand the reins over to us and we'll magically change you. It's going to take effort on your part. Realise that nothing is static and anything can be changed. Here's a couple of really good points from the book. Self-image. Everyone has a specific mental portrait that defines who he or she is and what they believe in. That mental portrait is the result of a lot of past experiences, both good and bad. Success and failure. Different feelings you have about yourself. Imagination. This is a big one. It's a big theme of the book. Our brain doesn't distinguish between imagination and reality. So if in reality you are really weak, but you imagine yourself to be really strong, you imagine that end journey, your brain can't distinguish the difference between the two. So if all you do is flood your brain with thoughts of, I am strong, I'm going to be a strong person, constant positive reinforcement, your brain will eventually go, right, well, I'm getting the message, that's who I need to be. But that takes practice and it takes consistency, like a lot of the other things. It acts based on the info we send it through our thoughts. This is not all just airy-fairy stuff. I really want you to be open to the information that's coming through in the next few slides. It's not all airy-fairy. Who's heard of meditation being useful? Leanne, you want to share? Currently practicing any of that?
I need to, I enjoy it.
Yep.
It's massive. And probably for me, having done oxygen for quite a while now, and probably got a lot of all these things we talk about as habits anyway, but this is the part. For me, my goal's got to be around balance. And this
Always
is a
has
massive
been.
part of the balance that a lot of people forget about or don't practice.
Over the years, I've heard Leanne say things like, in terms of goals, it's balance, it's stress relief. For her, coming to the gym consistently is not an issue. It's balancing demands of a husband who's never there because he's always training. Family, especially at an age where the kids are going off into the world in different directions. It's been awesome to see them grow up over the last few years. But also the big thing, running East Beach and this massive drain on her energy levels and her mental energy. And it doesn't have to be meditation, but taking time to relax. I don't meditate. I guess it's a form of meditation, but it's not textbook meditation. And one of the things I get a lot out of is taking 10 minutes in the morning in complete darkness to sit there in silence. And sometimes it's silence. Sometimes I put a specific track on that just gets you to focus on your breath.
But that is meditation.
Yeah.
That is meditation.
Yeah.
It's a form.
There's many forms, I
And
guess
breathing
now.
is probably one of the things I
Yeah.
And that mindfulness.
Breath work.
Letting-
Sorry,
yeah,
Catherine?
Mindfulness.
Mindfulness.
Appreciate things, not rushing.
Exactly.
Into your breathing.
Like sitting there at 5 o'clock in the morning and not thinking about the 1,000,001 tasks that I've got to do here today and what I've got to do when I get home and did I remember to get milk and groceries. It's nothing else. I've got to focus on my breathing and that's it. And it's amazing how sitting there for 10 minutes doing nothing but breathing actually makes you energized.
And I think again, some of those really successful business people say that's how they start their day. They
Yeah.
start their day with
Yep.
meditation or mindfulness or whatever. And
Morning ritual.
yeah, I think Mark Boris is one, you know, to talk about that's what they do.
Yeah, the list is huge. And look, there's plenty of successful business people and people in the world that are successful that don't do it in the morning. They do it at some point in their day. But I think there's something to be said by doing it first thing in the morning and just setting up your day for success. It works for me. Gives you more clarity, emotional well-being, less anxiety. All the things that will help you develop that positive self-image that you need if you're going to hit your goals. This is one I really struggled with for a while, and I touched on some of them before. In the lead up to moving here, I had a couple of staff members who I'd really put a lot of time into and spent a lot of money on, and worked on their development because I saw a lot of potential in them, and they pulled the rug out from under me and ripped me off in a big way and left me in a bit of a hole. And that's one of many past failures, and I went through this blame game for a very long time that the position I'm in is because of them. It's their fault. It was them. And look, they had a huge part to do with it, but after a while, wallowing in my own self-pity was the real reason that I wasn't moving forward. So learning to let go of past failures, if you don't, it just perpetuates the shit state you're in and the behaviours that you want to change. You can't get out of it because that's all you're focused on. We talked about it before, like focusing on the positive only, focusing on the good qualities that you have. It's self-destructive. The next one, let your success mechanism do the work. Now, there's a bit more about your success mechanism, and everyone has one. And I want you to imagine it like a missile. Australians are usually very military-minded. I'm certainly not. I'm sure if we were American or Iranian, that might be a bit more at the top of mind for us. But guided missiles. Once they fire them, particular types of missiles, they're guided automatically by the systems within the missile. Once you get very, very clear about the problem that you want to solve for yourself, you should completely clear your mind up from any worry about what if, any worries or expectations, anxiety related to the actual end result. And we talked about your subconscious mind before. Let your subconscious go to work. Has anyone ever had a real brainy idea come to them at the just most obscure moment, like middle of the night, you suddenly woke up and you've had a great idea? That's your subconscious mind at work. I've had that plenty of times. What's that, Nard? All the time? Yeah, me too. So you can actually jot it down and then get back to sleep. Because if you don't jot it down, it'll start running through your head and you'll never get back to sleep, or you won't remember it when you woke up. Yeah, you need the notepad, right? This is a big one too. I'll tie that into the point I made before about letting go of past failures. Just be happy. I've had this conversation with a number of people. Happiness is a habit. If you don't practice it, you won't experience it later on. How many people have you heard say things like, I'll be happy once I finish uni. I'll be happy once I get married. All I want is just, the only thing I want in the world is to have kids. Once I have kids, I'll be happy. It's when you achieve something, then you'll be happy.
I think this one's that gratitude thing.
100%.
You know, I think it's being thankful for the things that are good in life
Yep.
every day.
And that is part of the process that I do in the mornings.
Yeah.
Another great book is called The Miracle Morning, and that's where I got that routine from. And it's called the Life Savers routine. Not as in lifesavers, so I'm going to rescue you in the surf. Savers. Savers is an acronym, and it stands for silence. That's that 10 minutes. So the whole process takes me, 30 or 40 minutes, but silence, affirmations, telling you, reinforcing those positive things that you want, and not dwelling on the negatives. Visualization, exercise, reading, and then scribing. They couldn't put W for writing. Didn't quite make the acronym look very good. But that whole process of scribing, you're meant to, part of that, just write down a couple of things each day that you're grateful for. And you might not be able to think of anything until you get a pad and pen and you think of the tiniest little details of your life. You can actually make you feel pretty grateful, and that in turn sort of changes your state and your happiness. If you want to be happy, you have to learn to smile despite problems, because you will always have some sort of problem. Being happy is the first step in order to make everyone else around you happy. If you don't put yourself first, how can you take care of other important people in your life? That's a big point we go over with mums here, especially new mums, because they've got all this new stuff in their life with a newborn that takes up all of their time, all of their energy, all of their effort. And so, mums will often say, I don't have the time to come and do your program. I'd love to, but I don't have the time, I don't have the energy. But if they're not at their best, they're not going to be able to care for their kids. They've got to be at their best to take care of everyone else. So you've got to look after yourself first. There's a couple more points. So success mechanisms. We talked about this just a brief bit earlier. We're always looking for new accomplishments, always driven by the desire to achieve and become something more than what we already have. It's typical human behaviour that we're never content with what we've got. That's why having goals and dreams constitutes a prerequisite for reaching success. And if you look at that underneath, it's an acronym again. So success mechanisms, having a sense of direction, your goals, we talked about that. Understanding of your needs and others. Now, it's one thing to say, I want to do Ironman. I would love to do Ironman training. That's a 3.6k swim, 180k ride, and then after that, get off the bike and run a 42k marathon. You've got to understand the needs of others in your family and have a pretty damn supportive wife in order to make that a happy household. Courage, compassion, self-esteem, self-acceptance. That's a big one when we first get started with people, is they want this goal, but they just deep down don't feel they're worthy of it. Everyone's worthy of it. Regardless of any mistakes you've made before, or where you currently sit in your life, it's about looking at that end picture of who you want to be and not dwelling on the mistakes of the past. And we talked about confidence a little bit earlier. By the same token, there are also failure mechanisms. So if you're constantly frustrated and aggressive, insecure, if you find yourself withdrawing from, your friendship circle, your family, you don't spend time with anyone, you're constantly in this state of loneliness, that doesn't put you in a good environment to succeed. No one gets through this life on their own doing well, regardless of your pursuit. No one does it on their own. Resentment. I talked about how I had that resentment earlier, and it took me a long time to get past that. Emptiness. Releasing emotional scarring. By facing your fears, whatever those things in the past are that are holding you back, blaming other people, feeling like that set me back and it cost me, over $100,000. I was deeply scarred from that. But facing your fears and just free yourself from them, learn to let go of the past, release all those emotions so you no longer carry that old baggage and you can actually move forward. And then the last one, your mind is the most valuable asset that you have. When we face challenges that seems bigger than us, we can find courage, strength and resilience at will if you're in the right mindset. We have powers that we never thought we had, but the secret is all inside our mind. True power lies in accepting the challenge and saying to yourself, no matter what happens, I'm going to make it. I think I used that exact sentence. That when we moved here, and we were ready to sign the lease, and we had to get past council 3 times knocking back our DA, Department of Planning taking 6 weeks longer than they said to even address our concern, to then finally getting the approval, and there were restrictions within the building that we didn't have a disabled toilet. Council built the fucking building. That's not my problem, but we had to address it. There's not enough car parks for what you want to do. You built the car park, I didn't. Got through these hurdles, and our landlord, who unsurprisingly was sick of waiting, told us that, I'm really sorry, but we've got someone ready to move in and we're giving the lease to them. Who, unbeknownst to me, was Mick Baines from Baymed. But we managed to convince him to give to us. So, yeah. Secret is all inside our mind. Accepting the challenge, saying to yourself, no matter what happens, we're going to make it. Each one of those could have broken me, but we got here. Now we've got about 10 minutes. We're going to do a bit of speed on this next stuff. Some of you guys have done this before. I don't even really need you to fill each one of these out, but there's a bit of info on goal setting here. Put your name, put the date, what do you need, long-term goals on each. Where do you want to be at the end of this year? Why are those goals important to you? And then see how we go getting through that. Yes, I'm getting them. 2, 3, 4. Pass those a little bit. 4, 5, 6. Do that one, Jess. If you nail down, you can use the box. Like even if it's just a rough copy, what you might be able to do is actually go home and polish it up. We're going to be talking about this a bit over the next week or so, figuring out exactly where people would like to go. So I remember what I said to those kids at Triple Care Farm. This gym, not this one, the one there, right, can be a hugely useful part of your overall rehab, or it can be an incredible waste of time if you don't have some clarity around your goals. Is anyone struggling to write? Is that are those black boxes a bit too soft?
I think that's right.
Okay. You want to plunge the pen through it?
No, not yet. Nothing else.
Just get the name, date, long-term goals, why they're important to you. That's really all I'm after. Then we can talk about it. Long-term goals, why they're important to you, and figure out next steps. Think back to some of the mechanisms of failure. There was frustration and aggressiveness. Anyone pick up on that when I was talking about a few things then?
The tone change.
Yeah. What do you mean there's not enough car parks? You fucking got the car park. What do you want me to do about that? How am I supposed to fix that? Obviously it never became an issue because I didn't change it.
Huh?
Yeah, that's it. You don't do that. That's the
What's his name?
Wasn't it before?
Probably like, it's Jeff. It was Jeff. Just blame Jeff. He's not here. Couldn't mean himself.
It might stimulate some thought in you now. Remember before we talked
Me,
about
it's
setting
about-
something and letting your subconscious figure out the details later? You go.
Oxygen for me at the moment is probably more about maintenance.
Yeah, that's it. That's a big part of it at times. You might not have
For
any
me,
huge
at the moment,
goals.
I need to focus on, I need to maintain, I want to maintain my fitness, my health, and all that. You know,
Yeah.
there's a few things I've got to act on. Just take all this time without reaching.
So on that,
But my focus at the moment is going to be more about getting back into stretching.
yeah,
Getting back to yoga. It's that meditation side of it, and what I'm focus there with
yeah,
at the moment. That's what I feel like I'm not balanced in.
Yeah.
That's where I've got to get my head back. Yeah. So I just haven't fully got my head around how that's going to work yet. I've got some stuff that I'm
cool.
do that this weekend.
Yeah, let that stimulate your thought process. So like
Work. So, I mean, I've got to have focus here, but it's more about just keep coming 5 or 6 times a week.
Yeah.
Still do walking, enjoying that, and maybe get some runs in, but just a bit of outside stuff as well, and mix that up with yoga, and just.
So in terms of the things you do here, it's probably worth looking at. Let's not look at what your PBs on things are, but what's a good number on a few things of chin-ups, of a squat, or
Yeah.
bench press that you feel good at,
Yeah.
not your best ever scores.
Yeah.
Maybe like when you
Phase.
can comfortably knock out 10 good chin-ups, and I know you've been able to do 13 or something. 10, you probably feel pretty
Yeah, that's
comfortable.
right. That's what I want. Okay, that's my maintenance.
Has anyone got any questions with that? Like you're a bit stuck? Do you want to clarify a few things? So if I pick you out, you'll be able to tell me See,
That,
it's
that
close.
was like the end, like I want to do a pull up, and that's like the last thing, even though there's lots I still can't do. But to me, that represents something I thought was so far away, but I can see I'm getting closer and closer.
Awesome. Because that is getting pretty close.
Frustrating.
Let go of that frustration.
Remember that phrase towards the end of the slides? No matter what, I'm going to get there. You'd like to be there now. You'd love to be there next week. But you'll get there. You might get there in March, April. Yep. Alright, Ryan, you're next. You're right there. Yeah.
And that's true. That's everything.
Yeah.
I want to have be able to do stuff.
Keep your instructor. Yeah. Some things deteriorate quickly. You lose that everyday movement. So we've got 2 minutes. We're going to do a quick fire, go on your goals, Catherine.
On points with Ryan's stuff we talked about last time.
Yeah.
Fat loss, improvement, and being consistent. And it's really interesting. The state of Joe, I think I talked to people I see with at work, and one of the ladies only said to me this week that she's noticed a massive improvement in my sort of mindset and my demeanour and my well-being.
Yeah, awesome.
Beside the physical stuff, which obviously she can see, and just about how I guess,
Confidence you
yeah,
carry. That's
I'm
awesome.
much happier and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
that's interesting. So
Nice spin-off.
sweet, yeah, that's nice.
Jess, got a couple of things written down.
Yeah, be slimmer, lose some body weight, and be stronger.
So while we're on that goal with both of you, like Catherine was a good one to chat to actually, Jess, because you lost about 26, 28, 25 kilos, which is amazing.
Just
So what I want to ask you, which will help you as well, is when you say you want to lose weight, do you have a number in mind that you'd like to be at? Do you have a size or clothing that you'd like to be at? It's really gaining clear vision of where you want to be. So
I'm currently 81 kilos. I'd like to lose at least about 6 or 7. I'm struggling to get below 80, but anyway, I'm still working on it. And I haven't given up. I know my weight loss is slow, but it has to be achievable for me. Because I'm happy to say that over the past 52 weeks, I lost half a kilo recently.
yeah,
So, in my past, I've lost 20 kilos, gained 20 kilos, lost 20 kilos, gained 20 kilos. So, for me, it had to be long-term, consistent, and just a new lifestyle. And I couldn't just, in my eyes, deprive myself for 3 months to try and lose 15 kilos.
some people quit due to slow progress, never grasping the fact that slow progress is progress.
No, you must get harder as you get.
Yeah, just like building your strength, you'll get to stage where you plateau. I know I didn't get to you earlier, but we're going to call it there so that these guys can go and get warmed up because there's a session about to go down. I'll take those off you. If you want. If you're not happy with what you wrote, you want to clarify a bit better, you can dump your pen just there, and I'll get your sheet. Just over in your
I need to put my shoes on.
did it
I
in
did
the
buy a
first
house.
How
station.
good's that?
I know.
Look at that. You're a homeowner. Correct. So we get to be at 5 per station.
Just moved in.
So it's like you're trying to stop. Think about the person and it just went here. So incline dumbbell, RDL.
Yeah, I know.